I'm here joined with Dr. Jasmine McDonald. Thank you so much for joining me. I was really interested in what you were talking about on the panel, especially as it pertains to our environment and cancer risk. I'm wondering if you could explain more about that.
Yes. So what's important to know is that there's no gene that causes cancer. What I mean by that is that when you have like Parkinson's or Huntington's, there's a gene that you have and you're going to get the disease. Okay. Even if you're a carrier of BRCA1 or BRCA2, that gene does not mean you will 100% get cancer. And we don't know that. We just assume that, oh, I get cancer because I carry a gene. The fact of the matter is there has to be some type of environmental interaction with our genes that causes cancer.
Okay, so what does that environmental interaction look like? And what are we seeing with cancer rates these days that is pointing to that environmental risk?
Right, so we're seeing a rise in early onset cancer. So this is those who are getting cancer before the age of 45. We're seeing with breast cancer, we're seeing with colorectal cancer, we're seeing higher rates of young people getting cancer when we think about cancer as a disease of older age. You have to live long enough to get cancer. So it can't be due to genetics because changes in genetics happen much longer over time. And this trend is happening pretty quick. So we think about environmental exposures and the things that we breathe, what we swallow, what we put on our skin that gets absorbed, and these toxins that can change the way our genes interpret things or change the way our genes function or not function.
Okay. What are these toxins that we're exposed to?
So I do a lot of work on endocrine disruptor chemicals, which is just shorthand saying things that disrupt your hormonal system. Think androgens and estrogen. And our hormonal system is connected to everything. It's connected to your immune system. It's connected to your neurological system. And the fact of the matter, if you disrupt one, that means you're impacting the other. Okay. And so these chemicals can be phthalates. So when you buy a product and it smells good and they say on the label fragrance, that's typically a phthalate. If you see on a label that says parabens, parabens are used to give the shelf life of a product so that it doesn't spoil. But that's an endocrine disruptor. Okay. And so these are in our cosmetics, they're in our beauty products, and oftentimes every time you put on lipstick, if you don't have a very clean, toxic-free product, you're eating it, you're ingesting it. Anytime you spray your hair because it has phthalates to make your hair flexible, you're also now inhaling it. So we know that these products are entering into our bodies.
And I know you focus on, you just mentioned some beauty products and cosmetic products. Does that mean there are certain groups in our society that are more exposed and that's correlating with the cancer rates?
Yeah, so the beauty industry is a $100 billion industry. And it's not equally distributed based off of who gets exposed. You can imagine that women are going to be more exposed than men because of the beauty product industry. But we also know that Black women are the biggest consumers of hair products, 9 times fold any other group. And so these hair products that Black women are buying have been known to contain some of the worst chemicals. So for example, formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is used to embalm bodies. Mm-hmm. It's also in perms and relaxers, and some people have even seen it in baby shampoo.
Wow.
And then there's benzene. Benzene is also a known human carcinogen. Recent studies have shown that it's in braiding hair. So the hair that women use to create braids, a human carcinogen is in those braiding hair, some of those brands. And so, but these are all products that are marketed to Black women especially. If we think about the Eurocentric view of beauty, of having straight hair, light skin, those skin lightening creams can contain mercury, a known carcinogen. And so there are things that are in our products because they're not regulated. And if they're not regulated, then there's no one to say that it doesn't have to be there.
Wow. This seems like such an uphill battle, like an invisible onslaught of chemicals and toxins that we're being exposed to, some more than others. What are some things that we can do, maybe at the regulatory level first, and then on a personal level to help to protect ourselves, our families, our communities?
Well, I say one thing is like I was just at the GTFO, where the F stands for Get the Formaldehyde Out. And it's a campaign that's being ran by Breast Cancer Prevention Partners in California. And they do a lot of local legislation and federal legislation. But it's really to ask FDA, who has been studying formaldehyde in products for 10 years, proposed to ban it in products in 2023, but has missed their deadline to ban it 5 times.
Wow.
So this is something that we know that the government is thinking about, so we should be able to ban it. But that means that we, as citizens that are buying these products, need to go on board, sign petitions, and say, please do something about this. It is a known human carcinogen. Right. We shouldn't even have to ask. But the fact is we do. I also say that, for example, California has like Prop 65. They've had different policies in place that are stricter than our federal policies. And if we can get large industries, like California is one of the biggest industries we have in our country. With California comes Washington State, comes Maryland, comes DC. So we do want to think not just in our own state, but what is happening in others, because it can set precedents for allowing other adoption of different like legal policy, legislation, and et cetera. The other thing is, personally, don't buy products that are toxic. And that's easier said than done. But there are certain apps you can use that you can scan the ingredients list and it will tell you if it's toxic or not. Clearia is brand agnostic. It just looks at the ingredients and tells you what's in it.
I have one called Yucca.
Yeah, so yes, I do know Yucca, and Yucca's one. There's also Detox Me. There's the Environmental Working Group. There's so many. I want everyone to know that you have the power in your phone to just scan. And some of the products that I use, because some of the Black beauty products are not in their database, I use Clearia because it's agnostic. It's just reading a label.
Okay.
So if you ever come into a situation where the product you're buying, it's not in the database, just use Clearia. It also has if you're purchasing things online, it has an extension where it'll be like, this is like, if you're on Amazon, you're like, I'm gonna buy this. The extension will say if it's like safe or not safe.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great tip.
Because we do a lot of online shopping, right?
Yes.
So this is another way you can do. And just realize that like it's a lot of work. And if you know every morning you get up, you have to put on mascara, then that's where you start. You start with finding that one mascara that is toxin free. And now you have already reduced your exposure.
That's great advice. My one question that I had following the panel, that you talked about how the EU has banned or prohibited 2,400, is that right, chemicals?
2,400.
And yet the US FDA has only banned 15. I'm wondering what is causing that difference in approach?
So the difference in approach is that the European Union is prevention. So anything that may cause human harm, gets put on that list. The US is reactionary. If it does cause human harm, you report that. It gets listed as an adverse reaction. The more adverse reaction spurs more research. That research is done by me. It's done by the manufacturers, who then are trying to prove that it's not an adverse chemical, whereas I may be trying to prove that it is based off of the actual scientific evidence. But that takes so long It takes so long. So by the time, for example, BPA was put in baby bottles and feed.
What is BPA?
So BPA is used as an endocrine disruptor in plastic to make it more flexible.
Okay.
And it was commonly put in baby bottles and a lot of toys and drinking bottles. And you started seeing bottles say BPA free. BPA free,
Yeah,
right? And so it was always said buy BPA free and became a marketing tool, right? So you picked BPA free items. But what the manufacturers did was create a replacement chemical called BPS.
Okay.
It's just as harmful.
Suspicious.
Yeah, it's just as harmful. It's just as harmful. It has the same similar chemical structure, which made BPA harmful. But the industry, we said BPA is dangerous, BPA is dangerous. And so they said, you're right. We're going to make sure you know that it's BPA free, not telling the consumer that they're using a replacement chemical of a similar organic structure.
Horrible.
Right. So, we need to ban chemical classes so that we don't have this harmful replacement. But the idea is that BPA, there was reported like adverse reactions. It seems to be harmful. We're seeing something. But that was after the fact that dozens of children were already exposed.
Right.
So the EU, preventive. We don't want to put anything in society that could possibly cause harm. The US, reactionary. We're going to put it in, and because it's not regulated, and you let us know if it causes harm.
Okay, yeah, that's a very different approach. Is it easy for these companies to have a replacement of these chemicals that are as useful as the chemicals that make something more bendable, for example?
Right.
Like if the EU is doing it, is it feasible and could it make some economic sense?
It is feasible, and I gave an example of Breast Cancer Prevention Partners has this campaign against IV tubing, against Baxter. And if you go to the hospital and you get an IV tube for whatever reason, maybe you're dehydrated or maybe you're taking medication, the IV tubing has DEHP, which is an endocrine disruptor chemical. So literally you're getting medication to feel healthier, but you're also being pumped with a plastic,
Okay.
with a plasticizer. And so they're saying, Baxter, you have much of the market for IV tubing in the country. If you remove it, then most of the hospital facilities will not have DEHP containing IV tubing. Mm-hmm. So it's possible. It's very possible. Now, the thing about it is that people don't like change.
It costs money, right, for them to do that?
It costs money, but at the end of the day, it would cost more harm for it not to be an investment. So I will say, one, we need more green chemistry, and those who can do it are the manufacturers. They have as much money as they put into trying to prove something or prove a chemical is not harmful. They could actually be doing the science to find a less harmful chemical. Instead of trying to wait for a reaction and then wait for society to say, like, this is a problem, they can preemptively find a safer alternative or make sure the product is safe and then put it out there. And so, academics like myself, we look for research to the National Institute of Health and other organizations, but for-profit manufacturers have the bolus of money to invest in this science. And I encourage them to use green chemistry to find this replacement so that they're being preventative and not reactionary.
I just wonder if companies would do that voluntarily versus some kind of top-down regulation that has to mandate that, or public pressure is strong enough that they take it more seriously.
Well, I have to say, maybe I'm an optimist, but there are individual beauty brands and individual cosmetic brands that are realizing the importance of this.
Okay.
And they are putting in their own dollars to make something toxic free. So, and why? It's because we're demanding it. If we as consumers demand it, then it will happen. For example, have you ever seen a product that said phthalate free? That's because we demanded it. Have you ever seen a product that said paraben free?
Yeah.
That's because we demanded it.
Okay.
BPA free, because now you'll see BPA/BPS, because we demanded it. If the consumer makes that request, then the manufacturers have no choice. It's not about them being willing. It's about that's what the consumer wants.
Right. They want to give the people ultimately what they will purchase at the end of the day.
Right, because the consumer is their client.
Yeah.
So if we as consumers demand, I don't want formaldehyde in this. I don't want baby toys to have a phthalate known as DEHP. So now you have baby toys that don't have DEHP. So it's important that we use our voice, because at the end of the day, we are the consumer and their job is to please us. So if we demand better, then eventually they'll put their dollars into better.
Okay, we do have power as individuals and collectively is a really positive note to end this conversation on.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank